सरस्वते महाभागे
Namaskar and welcome. This is Jovik. We will today discuss some important topics regarding Riders to the Sea, Singe's one-act masterpiece. Now, these points not only important from the understanding and appreciation of the drama, but they are also quite much important from your SLST examination purpose. So let's move on. During 1897, J.M. Singh was a struggling playwright waiting for a masterpiece in Paris. But in 1897, W.B. Yeats, the pioneer figure and the founder of Abbey Theatre in Dublin, requested W.B. Yeats to go to the Aran Island. The Aran Islands, which was once a hub of culture of Gaelic civilization, has quite degenerated into a primitive pagan society. So in 1897, James Singe actually visited Aran Islands, stayed there for years, observed closely that struggle for survival of that Irish peasants and fisherfolk, their duality and conflicting attitude towards Christianity and heathenism, and with his own emotion, he created this masterpiece. Now, actually, Aran Islands, we again and again call it Aran Islands. Now, Aran Islands is not just a single island. You have to bear in mind that Aran Islands actually is a combination of three islands, and they are Inismore, Inisman, and Inisir. And those three islands, that is collectively termed as Aran Islands, they are situated in Galloway Bay. Quite important from objective question point of view. They are situated in the Galloway Bay, which is 30 miles from the town of Galloway, which is on the west coast of Ireland. The livelihood which James Singh saw in these islands are basically a primitive and pagan one with tinge of Christianity in it, Catholicism in it. Women are more industrious than men. As the land is barren, there was not much scope for cultivation, and except rye and barley, not much crops actually grow there. As these three islands, they were grossly neglected by the ruling British government, and as there is not much scope for earning livelihood. Again, you will find a reference in the play that the Aran Islanders, they are forced to be involved in some, you might call it, illegal activities, like most important of them being the smuggling of liquor. They have a peculiar impulse to give shelter or even encourage criminal activities. And Singe's play, The Playboy of the Western World, bears explicit reference to these criminal, illegal activities going on. These people, they were so superstitious that they even believed, or you may say they are forced to believe. There is constant reference to Irish superstition in this play. They are forced to believe the water from some sacred wells might the well of the saints, which centers around the same idea. Now you have to keep in mind that Riders to the Sea, a harrowing one-act tragedy, neither sticks to totally Aristotelian concept of tragedy nor to Shakespearean concept of tragedy. আমাদের একটা ধারণাই রয়েছে যে রাইডার্স টু দ্য সি পুরোপুরি ক্লাসিক্যাল ট্র্যাজিক প্যাটার্নে লেখা হয়েছে, বাট দ্যাট ইজ নট দ্য কেস। আমি কিছু পয়েন্ট বলছি, এটা কোথায় অ্যারিস্টটলিয়ান ট্র্যাজেডির মতো হয়েছে, কোথায় শেক্সপিয়ারিয়ান কনসেপ্টের কাছে গেছে, আবার কোথায় দুটো কনসেপ্ট কোনোটাই ফলো করা হয়নি। And these are subtle references which are important from your exam perspective. Number one, the plot is simple. The characterization is quite convincing. Aristotle, believes that tragedy should be serious in action, as he has told in his The Poetics. So the play Riders to the Sea celebrates sustained seriousness without any kind of comic subplot. So in this perspective, this is akin to a classical tragedy. As Aristotle has prescribed that the aim of the tragedy is to create a sense of pity and fear, and it should purge our mind. So, Riders to the Sea at the end, as you would see later, attains this purpose through a complete purgation and a calm of mind, all passion spent attitude is of course gained by the audience as well as by the readers. Riders to the Sea of course sticks to the idea of catharsis, but here is no hamartia which Aristotle has prescribed. Moria does not commit any kind of error of judgment. From that perspective of hamartia or tragic error, it does deviate from Aristotelian model. Interestingly, there is some similarity between classical tragedy and Shakespearean tragedy, because the classical tragic playwrights Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides or Shakespeare all believed that tragic hero should be a gigantic, titanic figure, a man above the average. Aristotle tried to convince us that tragic hero can never be an average or ordinary individual, because if a small shrub or a small sapling is cut down, it will never create any kind of tremor or impact. But instead, if you cut a huge tree, it will create a kind of earthquake shaking in the mind of the people. Now that idea, if we take Oedipus, Macbeth, Hamlet, Coriolanus, Prometheus, everywhere you will find that they are not ordinary human beings. So that is a strange similarity between these two types of tragedy. But Arthur Miller was the first substantial figure to usher a change in this concept. Arthur Miller believed in the tragedy and dignity of the common man. Arthur Miller's idea is that if the tragic hero is not an ordinary individual, how we, the audience, can identify ourselves with that tragic protagonist? So if we cannot identify with that tragic protagonist, it will create what Bertolt Brecht says, an alienation effect. অর্থাৎ আমরা হয়তো হ্যামলেট দেখছি বা প্রমিথিউসকে দেখছি, কিন্তু প্রমিথিউসের আগুন চুরি বা হ্যামলেটের যে মেন্টাল ডুয়ালিটি, সেটা একান্তভাবেই তাদের নিজস্ব। আমরা যারা সাধারণ মানুষ, আমরা তাদের সাথে ওয়াননেস ফিল করতে পারি না, কারণ তারা সমাজের যে স্ট্যাচারে বিলং করে আমাদের কাছে উই সিম্পলি ক্যান ড্রিম অফ দ্যাট। আধুনিক ট্র্যাজেডিতে দেখতে পাবো মর্নিং বিকামস ইলেকট্রা, ডেথ অফ এ সেলসম্যান, এগুলোতে আমরা দেখতে পাবো যে দ্য ট্রাজিক প্রোটাগনিস্ট ইজ জাস্ট লাইক আস, হি স্পিক্স অ্যান্ড ফিলস like us. So there is an identification with them. So quite unlike that Greek concept and Shakespearean concept, the tragic protagonist of Riders to the Sea, Moria, she is an illiterate, superstitious, ordinary Irish peasant woman. And that's why we can feel oneness with her. She is akin to our sentiment. In Greek tragedy, the important factor, the most dominating element, is destiny or fate. Arrayed in tooth and claw, it plunges upon us. For the no fault or a very small fault which we intentionally or unintentionally incur. For example, question may be raised about Oedipus's so-called fault, tragic error of marrying his mother and killing his own biological father. So in the similar way, the hungry Atlantic lashing in the barren shores of the Aran Islands is the embodiment of destiny. She is really what Sophocles or Euripides would call more than a man. Some questions may be asked regarding Bartley's role for his death, but you have to keep in mind that the tragedy is not Bartley's. The tragedy is Moria's. And throughout the play, you will never find a single fault, intentionally or unintentionally, in Moria's character. So this is a fate-ruled world, where a man, as King Lear says, as flies to wanton boys are we to the gods, they kill us for their sport. Actually, Riders to the Sea is Orestian in structure, where no moral choice is left for Moria. She is just a helpless and flawless victim of destiny called Atlantic. So Riders to the Sea is a tragedy of fate. Fate in Riders to the Sea acts as a vital embodiment of destiny. It is in its own right a character, and the poor mortals, they simply fight against the blind, mysterious force. So in this fight of man with more than man, destruction is inevitable for mankind. But we all know that the end of the tragedy is to show the dignity of man. তাহলে আমি এখানে যেটা বলতে চাইছি সেটা হচ্ছে যে how Moria, in spite of her being totally how does Moria attains a tragic posture, tragic dignity, because she has lost everything. So in order to understand this point, you have to compare it with Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice, which is basically a tragicomedy. Now, we all know that in The Merchant of Venice, Shylock, the cruel moneylender, has lent money to Antonio, and the written condition was that if Antonio fails to pay back the money to the Jewish moneylender within the certain time, Shylock would have the liberty to cut the flesh from his body. Now Antonio fails, and the option is given. Shylock is ready, sharpening his knife, because he bears a grudge against all Christians. But at that crucial juncture, Portia comes in the guise of a lawyer, and Portia says that, well, Shylock, you have the right to cut that flesh, but see, in that agreement, there is no mention of any blood. Now, in this procedure of cutting flesh, if you shed a bit of blood from Antonio's body, double punishment will be given to you. Now, Shylock, he realizes that he is in a trap. So he tries desperately to come out of the trap and says that, well, give me my money back. I am not interested in the flesh. I am not a cannibal. But Portia insists that what is written must be obeyed. And if you fail to obey the written doctrine, again then you have to undergo the punishment. এখন শাইলককে যে করে হোক তার প্রাণ বাঁচাতে হবে। এখন তার সামনে অপশন দেওয়া হলো যে যদি তুমি তার মাংস কেটে নাও অ্যান্টোনিওর শরীর থেকে, তাহলে তোমার শরীর থেকেও দ্বিগুণ পরিমাণে মাংস কেটে নেওয়া হবে, যেটা শাইলক চায় না, সে বাঁচতে চায়। যদি শাইলক তার আইডিওলজিতে স্টিক থাকতো, অর্থাৎ শাইলক কিন্তু তার যে গ্রাজ ফর দ্য ক্রিশ্চিয়ান সেটাকে জাস্টিফাই করেছে অলরেডি। আমরা জানি শাইলক বলছে যে কবে জুডাস ক্রাইস্টকে বিট্রে করেছিল, তার জন্য তোমরা ক্রিশ্চিয়ানরা, ইউ হেট আস, ইউ বুলি আস অ্যাজ ইফ উই আর নট হিউম্যান বিইংস। সে সেখানে ব্রিলিয়ান্ট রেটরিক্যাল ইউজ করে বলছে যে ইফ ইউ প্রিক আস, ডু উই নট ব্লিড? ইফ ইউ রং আস, উইল উই নট টেক রিভেঞ্জ? তাহলে সে তার নিজের এথিক্স, দ্যাট ইজ রং অর রাইট, দ্যাটস অ্যানাদার কোয়েশ্চেন, সে যদি নিজের এথিক্সে স্টিক করে থাকতো, ইট উড হ্যাভ বিন এ ব্রিলিয়ান্ট ট্র্যাজেডি। বাট alas, Shylock failed to stick to his own principle. Shylock shatters and says that, well, forgive me. And he is forgiven on the condition that Shylock will be baptized. His daughter Jessica, she will be given marriage to another Christian, Lorenzo, and his total idealism is laughed at. That is why The Merchant of Venice becomes a tragic comedy and Shylock becomes a funny figure at the end. You may say a figure of a lamenting figure at the end, not a tragic figure. But Moria is no Shylock. Like the creation of Sophocles or Aeschylus, Moria knows very well that there is no escape from fate. So let's face it. And when everyone is drowned, Moria is stoic. Stoic means who doesn't bother much about either ecstasy or agony. She accepts the reality that this is the way of life and we have to accept it. There is no other option. Moria never cries because she feels that it is her moment of win, as she will now not have to pray and cry for the fishermen who have gone to the sea. In the midst of agony, he finds a tragic ecstasy. And that is why, in spite of being defeated by destiny, destiny is defeated by Moria. Another interesting point you have to keep in mind that the deaths of Moria's child are quite unlike the deaths of neo-based children or medias, being the consequence of blasphemy. Mark, Moria is much closer to the world of Sophocles than Euripides, as there is no justification for her being destitute. Another important feature of tragedy is the tragic irony. In Riders to the Sea, you will see that Singh's subtle use of tragic irony. When Nora says that after giving his bait, when the two sisters are quite comfortable, feeling that after giving the bit of bread, Moria would be quite cozy or comfortable a bit in her mind, there comes that foreboding omen indicating impending disaster. A Sophoclean kind of irony you will find when Bartley says. A Sophoclean irony you may find when Moria says to Bartley that it's her set will be surely the day you are drowned with others. The irony is also there when Moria takes Michael's stick to help herself while going to Bartley to give his bit of bread. But her inability to give her blessing and bread, and instead her visualization of Michael's ghost chasing Bartley is much closer to the lamentation of the characters of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. Her inability to give Bartley his bread is related to the Eucharist ritual. In the Eucharist ritual, a priest eats bread and drink wine to feel the pain of Christ during crucifixion. But Bartley's inability to receive that indicates that he will be devoid of salvation. Darbuck, another critic of Riders to the Sea, appreciates the play for its brilliant ironic overtone, stating that it is a metaphorical presentation of the cycle of birth and death, where living Bartley wears dead Michael's shirt, old Moria takes young Michael's stick. The bread, the symbol of life, can never be given to living Bartley because of that schizophrenia after visualizing the ghost. So there is a kind of, you can say, there is a kind of cyclical structure which is quite important. Ironically, there is also the image of resurrection. When Moria visualizes the scene that Michael is chasing Bartley, she sees that Michael is putting on new clothes, new shoes, new dress. She appears resurrected. This is quite ironical. So here is T.R. Hen's famous conclusion that Riders to the Sea is a microcosm of the whole world. Stick to us, read with utmost attention, and distract yourself from any kind of diversion.